G'day Grumpies, and welcome to another edition of Grumpy Old Bloke, the Vinyl Collection. Today we're still on the topic of David Bowie, and this is the second box set of David Bowie releases. This is covering the period of 1974 to 1976, and it's called the Who Can I Be Now box. Well, that's what it's called. Who Can I Be Now? The reason it's called that, I believe, is because after the glam rock success and everything else, David wanted to take a different direction, a different flavour of his music and a different style, and this was a period of exploration, I would say. This is what's very often referred to as his soul, funk period. Now, let me say from the outset, this is not one of my favourite periods of David Bowie. I'm not a big fan of funk and soul at the best of times. Look, I appreciate David's was a very talented musician and has every right to do whatever he likes. After all, it's his career and this is my show and he's entitled to do what he wants. I'm entitled to have an opinion on it. I think that's only fair. So, let's kick off with the David Bowie box set 2, Who Can I Be Now? 1974 had seen the departure of the Spiders of Mars, or rather the breakup of the Spiders of Mars, and the return of Tony Visconti into the studio from a production perspective, and that relationship would last for the rest of the decade. 1974 brought out this, Diamond Dogs. Now, for me, this is probably the last. This album probably belongs to the previous box set. This is the last sort of Ziggy, Stardusty, proggy, glammy sort of album. For me, it belongs more in that set than this set, but you know, it wouldn't have been 5 years then, would it? So that would have completely thrown the name of the last box set. So look, you'd be very familiar with this album. It's one of his classics. It's one of his better known ones. It's a gatefold sleeve, although it's a single album. Track listing on the back. I'll bring it in for you there. Okay. As you can see, no Spiders from Mars there anymore. The other interesting thing about this cover, originally it came out, this is actually a remake of the original, and as you can see, David has Bowie's bits downstairs. There is a dog. Now in America, that was considered offensive because, bless them, we all know the Americans don't like to see genitalia. It's okay to see people's brains blown out all over the place. That's okay, but as long as we don't see any bits. RCA, again, copy label, same as the last box set. Other than that, there's nothing really of any particular note about this album cover. It's a 2017 remix of the original album. Nothing particularly different on there. Now, as far as the tracks, I've had an interesting relationship with David. I never met David, but you know what I mean, relationship, metaphorically. I've always had a push-pull. David does stuff that I think, yeah, brilliant. That's absolutely fantastic. And I want to go rush out and buy his stuff. Then he'd release stuff which I just could not connect with at all. And that pretty much was the story of his career up to a certain point, which we'll come to in the next episode. However, this is one that I do like. As I say, for me, it sits with the more in the previous, with Aladdin Sane, Hunky Dory, that sort of period of time. Still a very good album, and this is a very good remix of it. So if you, like me, if you want to be a completist, obviously you want to get the box sets. As far as albums concerned, I would say this was one of the must-haves for your David Bowie collection. This box set contains double-ups of a couple of albums, but the first one we come across is the David Live LP. Now, this was released originally in 1974, just about 6 months after Diamond Dogs, I believe, and was allegedly, although no one seems absolutely clear, recorded around about July 1974 in Philadelphia. It's somewhere called the Tower. I'm sure those of you from Philadelphia would know where that is. Anyway, this is the original mix of the album, and this was remastered in 2016. So, that's a gatefold sleeve. There you go. And I must stop saying that. And on the back of that, I'm going to try and find some clarity for you. Track listing there. Now, the track listing on the two albums is different, but for now, we'll stick with this one. This album is interesting. Apparently, there were some problems with the band members, because obviously David wasn't playing with his own band anymore. He was touring with some hired musicians who took exception to only being paid $70 for doing a live gig that was going to be recorded in line with union rights, and ended up boycotting playing until they were paid, I think it was about $5,000 each or something, which seems reasonable under the circumstances. I'm pretty sure Dave could afford it. Look, it's... I'm not a big fan of this album, I have to say. I think David would have done better stuff. This is the first official live recording of David, even though in the previous box set there were 2 bootleg versions of David's concerts. I actually prefer those to this. Again, it's probably period as well. It's not one of my favourite periods of David Bowie, but it just doesn't... I just don't like the mix of it very much. I just don't like the sound of the album, and yeah, that probably is reflected on my opinion of the album. The inner sleeves... David started playing guitar on this tour as well. Well, he started playing guitar on the tour. On the tour, he played guitar. There we go. Earl Slick was the guitarist on this album, and was with David for... I don't know what Earl Slick's a well-known guitarist, and needn't introduce him to any of you, I'm sure. That's the other. So look, again, the albums, I don't know if I need to keep showing you the labels, but they're on the RCA mock-up with the Bowie label on it. Good album. Look, if you like this period of David Bowie, you probably like this album. Live albums are always a good way to get into any artist, as we've discussed a number of times. And my personal opinion, I love live albums more than studio albums as a general rule. And I like them particularly raw. I don't like too many overdubs. Allegedly, this album has no overdubs on it. I'm not sure that that's true. But anyway, look, that's the first version of it. Now, as we've said, the first David live album was an original mix remastered. Please don't confuse remastered and remixed. If you don't know the difference, ask and I'll clarify that for you. The other version of the Tony Visconti is the 2005 remix, remastered in 2016. So the differences between them are, well, this is a triple gatefold and it's a triple album. There's the back. Good pout, David. Good pout. What else can you say? Oh, yeah, and that's the back of the album with your full track listing. Now, on this album, there's 4 or 5 additional tracks on this album which aren't on the original David Live. Again, why they included both, I guess it's for completist's sake. This is the better of the two, I would argue. A, it's got more tracks on it, so better value for money. And secondly, the sound quality on this is better. I think Tony Visconti, I don't know what he did, not my area of expertise, but it is a better sounding album. So overall, this one would get the edge out of the two. So if you have to buy one of the two, if you can get this one separately, I don't think you can, but if you can, this would be the one to buy. As far as the inners are concerned, as I say, it's a triple album. I've got all the bits and pieces here. I don't think you need to see every single one of them, but the inner cover, the inner sleeves are as such. I might put that down, save me throwing them across the floor. There we go. We have the second one. And the third one. So, better packaged, better sounding, not the original. So it depends again. If you're a purist, you need both. If you're a completist, you need both copies of this album. But for me, of the two, this is the better recording and more complete because it obviously has more tracks on it. So that's my tip. 1975 marked the 9th studio album by David Bowie, and it's true to say this was the real departure from the whole glam rock and everything that had gone before. Many people have been quite derogatory about what style of music you might call this. David Bowie himself referred to it as plastic soul, and I don't think I can come up with a better version of that. However, the album was called Young Americans. Now, this was huge in America. They loved it in America. I'm British. I hated it. But as far as the track listing is concerned, I'll try and zoom in for you there. Yeah, I just didn't get this. I did not understand what was going on in this album at all. Wasn't Bowie, didn't speak to me musically. However, there's some very interesting facts on it. I mean, it's a good album if you like that sort of music, but I don't. So there you go. Some very interesting facts on here though. One of the backing singers on this album was Luther Vandross, who was pretty much an unknown at the time, or not very well known. So those of you that are into real soul would know who Luther is, and Luther's a real soul person. Another interesting thing is on the track Fame, which is probably the only track on this album I like, John Lennon sang on it. So that's a little fact that I didn't know about either. So what can you say about this album? You either love it or you hate it. I don't think you can be... so I don't think you can sit on the fence with this album. I think I've made my feelings clear. As far as the album's concerned, again, RCA Styly label. The inner sleeve was, if I can pick it up, because I don't really want to let my fingers not even like such today. Inner sleeve, inner pamphlet comes with this. Again, I might be able to see the track listing a little bit better there. Look, I know some people love this album. It's just not for me, I guess. At the time this album, there was another album that was being worked on called The Jouster. Now, The Jouster you cannot get hold of, I believe, unless it's a bootleg copy. There's no official release of it, but it does come in this box set. This is it. So essentially, this is Young Americans' work in progress. Young Americans has 4 tracks in common with this. I'll go into that for you in a minute. I'll show you the track listing on this. You can make your own mind up. It's the back of the album. Now, I know this is highly sought after by fans. And there's your track listing. And Who Can I Be Now is features on this as well, which is obviously the name of the box set. It's a single album, as one might expect. Again, on the RCA faux label, with the inner lining, inner sleeves there. Now, as I say, this was a work in progress album for Young Americans. David chose to cut this to pieces before it actually was released, reorder the tracks in some way or another, and hence Young Americans came about. So this is quite a rare commodity. Well, it's not rare now, it's been released in the box set, but out in the wild, very, very difficult to find. You'll only find a bootleg version of it. And I believe there's a couple of white label demos out there, so they'd be worth an absolute fortune. But there you go, that's The Jouster with a G, which was not released as an album, but as an essential part of his work during this period. The box set also contains 2 versions of another David album, Station to Station, which was released in 1976. This is his 10th studio album. Now, I have, in the box set, has 2 versions of this album. One is the Maslin mix, and the other one is the standard studio mix. There really isn't a lot between them. I really don't think there's any value in the remix. I just don't see the point. Anyway, as far as the album was concerned, track listing was reasonably short on this one. This saw the appearance of David's character, the Thin White Duke. Thin because I think he was down to about, I read somewhere, 80 pounds, or I don't even know what that is in kilos, but it wouldn't be very much. He'd lost a lot of weight and developed quite a bad habit with external substances, so I've come to believe. In order to get over, or at least recover from this, he removed himself from LA and went to live or spend some time with Glenn Hughes, ex-Deep Purple, and Iggy Pop, which I don't know about you, but if I wanted to get off illicit substances, I'm not too sure they'd be the 2 chaps I choose to go and stay with. However, what this is a really good, solid album. As I was saying before, David sort of lost me on the Young Americans album, and I'd sort of gone, oh, you're going to have to impress me again. And the track Golden Years was released as a single prize release of the album, and I thought, okay, alright, that sounds promising. Now, this is a good, solid album. It's okay. Some people think it's a classic. For me, it's more of a transitional album. After David's folly, shall we say, with Plastic Soul, this was an album where he wasn't really sure where he was going yet. He was being influenced by a lot of the German music at the time. I think Kraftwerk, Neue, bands like that, and that obviously is going to show up more significantly in the next box set, which covers the Berlin period, shall we call that. So look, 2 versions of the same album. Why? Don't really get it. I get the feeling with this box set that maybe they were struggling for some real quality product. I don't think it was probably David's most commercially quite successful, especially with Young Americans, but creatively speaking, I'm not really sure this was his greatest period, and as such, I think the quality of the product shows as a result. However, people love these albums. People love Young Americans. People love Station to Station, and obviously Diamond Dogs. But as I said before, Diamond Dogs for me probably belongs to the last box set. Still, in my opinion, my show. The penultimate vinyl in the box set collection is another live album. It's this one. It's live at the Nassau Coliseum in 1976. This was on the Isola tour, or Isola if you want to say it that way, in support of the Station to Station album. So another gatefold sleeve, as all good live albums should be. Gatefold sleeves and a track list. Thus on the back, which obviously reflects what his live set at the time. Look, it's a good memento of a period of David's time, as all good live albums are. If you want to look at the labels themselves, they're a little bit more spec. You can actually really see. I might take that out. I'll take that out for you. See, or special, so you can see. There we go. That's a little bit better. So, a bit difficult to see on here, but all of the labels, all four sides, have that similar sort of look to them. The musicians on this tour were, again, hired musicians, although they were extremely well known now as a result of it. Although particularly, I struggle with it. I'm sorry. I know I'm saying I know this is a sacrilege. Don't really enjoy it. The album actually was released originally as a deluxe box set, I believe, with the release of Station to Station in 2010, when it was actually released as an album in its own right. So it's a good way to finish the chapter. It's always good to finish with a live album before you get into new studio work. Again, it's a valuable inclusion in the box set. In its own right, probably doesn't stand up that well for me. Finally, to round off this box set, as with all the other David box sets that have come out recently, is a Recall album. This one's, funny enough, called Recall 2. Who'd have thought the amount of imagination that went into that? Recall 2. And like the other albums, what this does is contain a number of singles and different edits that were from the albums that were released during the period of this box set. So in this case, 74 to 76, and different versions of stuff that weren't available on the albums. There's a little bit more detail for you there. There you go. So again, it's nice to have from a completist perspective. Most people would have various versions of that, but if you don't have the singles, that's quite a nice way to collect them. Again, on the RCA label. So overall, that's the end of the vinyl, and now we'll have a look at the book, which also comes with the set. As we've said before, all good box sets need to come the coffee table book. I defy anyone who's laid out this sort of money on box sets to put this on your coffee table, but if you want to, by all means do. Again, I'm not really going to have the opportunity because it's impossible to go through, but I'll flick through the pages for you so you can get a rough idea of what's inside. So just covering the albums and the singles and releases, some from tour programs, that sort of stuff. Some handwritten lyrics in there. So, look, beautiful to have, really well produced. In fact, all of the books that have come in these box sets are extremely lovely to have, very well produced, beautiful quality. And rounds off the box set. So, my thoughts. Not my favourite period of Bowie. I think we've covered that off. I think that this album box set was probably struggling to find enough material and content to put it in without eking too much into the first one, which probably could have done with Diamond Dogs in it. This one, this box set is that whole soul transition, funk, not really sure where I'm going period of David's time, which was important transitional because of what comes next. Those of you that are real Bowie fans. Personally, I ordered this box set the moment it came out. We've already discussed the reasons for that. It's because I didn't own any Bowie stuff, and it was just easier for me to go and collect the box sets than to rifle my way through millions and millions of record fairs trying to pull out David Bowie stuff. So I felt this was just like a fait accompli for me. It was delivered as a package, and it made it nice and easy for me, as I'm not such a huge David Bowie fan. Again, love David Bowie, sits in my record collection, that incredibly important, not an artist I regularly visit. The next box set, has a little bit more appeal for me, and we shall be covering that off in the next episode of Grumpy Old Bloke, the vinyl collection. So in the meantime, please invite your comments and your thoughts and anything you'd like to share with me in this regard in the comments below. Please, if you could, I'd really appreciate it if you could subscribe and like if you do, and if you don't, well, just don't. So that's all good. Take care of yourselves, stay grumpy, and I'll see you all soon. Keep on rocking.